Waivers, whispers, and wallet watching. The Pirates are doing what they usually do. Let's talk all about it as Operation 83 wins continues with typical Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, I'm Gary Morgan, and this is Locked On Pirates. Today, we continue our series, Operation 83 Wins. It's part 2, typical Pirates. We've got roster moves. We got to talk about trade speculation. Whole lot of familiar behavior to unpack. Let's get into it. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So let's start out with some news. A waiver wire reality check for a few players. Ji Hwan Bae, Liover Peguero, and Jack Little have all been placed on waivers. Pirates are now at 40 on their 40-man, including the 5 on the 60-day IL. Bae's decline from 23 to 25 was pretty apparent. He looked like a promising young player in 2023 that needed a little bit more time, and it just never happened. Honestly, his production in AAA has kind of been fine the entire time. It's when he gets to the majors where it's not just that he struggles, it's that Ji Hwan Bae does not look like the same player. He has sometimes a different swing. I don't know if you've really paid much attention when he has been up here, and it's not like he's gotten a ton of opportunity when he has been. But when you see him swing at high fastballs out of his shoe, and he almost does that entire pirouette in the batter's box where he spins his entire body around, and I got to tell you, you will not see that in the minors, not very often. Ji Hwan Bae is just not that type of player down there. He uses his speed well down there. He seems to know when to take jumps. We kind of talked about this a little bit when we were talking about development last week, where, how are guys supposed to prepare for things that they're not going to see in the majors? Like, how do you tackle that problem? How do you teach people to get good jumps trying to steal bases on pitchers with really good moves to first and guys behind the dish with cannons for arms, and veteran pitchers that play tricks with your timing and can alter their release time to home. There's so many different factors involved in something like that. And all I can say is that Ji Hwan Bae has got an advantage few do. He's lightning fast. And for whatever reason, he was never able to make it translate to the majors. The best application of his speed in the majors was if he was on first base and there was a base hit, there was a good chance that he could score from first. You weren't going to get stolen bases. You weren't going to get him putting himself in scoring position a whole lot. Even if you did, at times, I think some of what he did over at first base, just hopping around and never being sure, added to the distraction level of the guys at the plate that were supposed to be trying to support his effort. They know he's supposed to steal a base, and there they are taking pitch after pitch, trying to give him time to do it, but he just won't ever do it. I think they just got tired of it. Liover Peguero is a weird bird, man. He's got power. It's real. He can field. That's real. I don't think he's a great fielder, and I don't think that he's done enough in the time that he's been given to develop here as a Pittsburgh Pirate to warrant being held on to. That said, this is a guy that when he did get called up, didn't get opportunity. And I don't just mean this year. I mean, like, going back. They've had a real weird thing with Liover Peguero where they would call him up. The funny thing is they kind of rushed him onto the into the scene in the first place. Like they needed a quick helper for a series, and they ended up calling him directly up from AA. And guess what? He didn't look anywhere near as overmatched in that call up as he did the next time when they purposefully meant to call him up. I just remember thinking back to like the Greensboro days. Like this was a lot of the core we were being sold was coming that was going to save us. Think about it. Remember the Greensboro like ads that they would run? I mean, it was Henry Davis, Nick Gonzalez, Ji Hwan Bae, Liover Peguero, Mike Burrows. Talk through all those guys that were in Greensboro at that time. They did a whole documentary on it, like on whatever we were calling the Pirates network at the time. I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't Sportsnet. Whatever it was before, there was a whole documentary they did about those Greensboro boys coming up here and making a difference. Well, Henry's gotten here, but he hasn't made a difference. Burrows took a hell of a detour to get here. Carmen Majinski's here. There's that. But Ji Hwan Bae bombed out. Liover Peguero bombed out. I mean, this also, I think, closes the book. I know technically Brennan Malone is still floating around somewhere, but he hasn't stayed healthy and really hasn't gotten any traction at all. This kills the Starling Marte deal entirely. There was absolutely no benefit to that deal. The Pirates got absolutely nothing out of it. All three. Oh, I think I told you about the Jack Little guy, but I just don't care all that much, so I'm not going to talk much about him. All three of these guys are eligible for minor league free agency. So if they go unclaimed, they could be gone by Thursday. They could elect to accept the assignment and stay with the Pirates, or they could elect free agency and be gone. I would think that these are all candidates for accepting free agency. So inevitably with the Pirates, when you end up letting go of people, and we will continue to have these conversations, we might be having a conversation very similar to this about Jack Swinski in a week or two. There's so many different guys like that. Did they give up on him too early? Will he emerge somewhere else? Will either of these guys emerge somewhere else? I give Liover Peguero a lot more of a chance to do that than Ji Hwan Bae, if only because Liover Peguero is still relatively young. He's still on the better side of 25, and he still can play defense, and he still does have power that he's shown, and someone will take a shot at him. I'd actually be a little bit surprised if Peguero got through waivers entirely. Ji Hwan Bae is another one. Listen, again, the tools, there's no denying that they're there. None. The speed's very real. What that should mean defensively is very real. I don't think we've seen him translate that to the field either. We talked about not being able to steal bases at the major league level. Well, I haven't really seen the glove take over at the major league level. I've seen some flash. I don't see consistency. But I think Ji Hwan Bae is a guy that if somebody ever got a hold of him and was like, listen, bro, just embrace being a slap hitter. It's okay. Imagine like somebody that could just get on base, slapping singles around, drawing walks, and could actually just run around the bases and can field excellently. You'd have a chance to turn Ji Hwan Bae into something if you could only get through to him. Again, it's never translated to the majors. That's the problem. And I don't believe this is on the Pirates because everything you're preparing Ji Hwan Bae to do and be, I'm seeing in AAA. That at some point it's between the ears. You're not making it up here for a reason. It doesn't have a whole lot to do with the team. I do think somebody else can reach him because a different message might be what gets through to him. But I don't know. You call him up to the majors and he just starts swinging like he's a home run hitter or something. and he looks lost. He can't bunt all of a sudden. Like I understand being tired of both of them, and I understand moving on. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's start really getting into the typical Pirates method for this Operation 83 wins. Okay. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter big comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game interesting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey everybody, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and drop a like. Hit me with a comment. Ton of great comments yesterday. Got a great list of AMAs started already for Friday. So keep those coming as we continue to add more and more to this puzzle. I'm going to do this one a little differently today. First, I don't feel a need to repeat all these things that I think are smart trades. Because to me, painting the picture of what I felt was a smart trade or a smart trade to go after is enough to give you the flavor of what I'm looking for. And I think it does nothing but kind of insult the proceedings to intentionally sit here and try to come up with trades that I don't think are so smart so that I can pin them on the Pirates. Okay, as things that I think they're going to do or they're that dumb. I'll simply tell you, I think they should be fishing in the areas that I painted yesterday on the program. But I want to talk more specifically about some pitfalls that I think they could fall into that I didn't discuss yesterday. And we're going to start with Mitch Keller, okay? Because to me, this is a big dilemma. It's also something that I think very well may define this offseason in and of itself. Like, if the Pirates trade Mitch Keller, it's going to indefinitely be for payroll flexibility, okay? And what I fear is that they're going to overestimate what he's worth. Now, don't get me wrong. I think he's a very valuable player, and I think he's paid very appropriately for what he does. And I think somebody would want that. But I still think, just like I did at the deadline last year, if you're dealing with a team that wants to acquire Mitch Keller, there's a very good chance that you're dealing with a team that thinks they're going to contend this year. Okay? So if that's the case, I think you're still going to have a little bit of difficulty prying back major league talent, at least proven major league talent. All right? And especially the teams that I feel like you could be approaching, right? Like Boston, we talk about a lot because Boston seemingly has an overflow of offensive talent in an area of need for the Pirates, and that's why it makes sense. Oakland has, I wouldn't call it an overflow of talent, but they have a severe deficiency in an area that they have, as of yet, not been able to fill themselves, and you might be able to offer them a solution that really helps them out while helping yourself out at the same time. Again, I'm not saying those are going to come through, but those are the types of things I'm looking to trade Mitch Keller for. And if I don't get them, I'm pulling it back off the table and just dealing with it. What I'm afraid of is that the Pirates will look at their roster, feel that Mitch Keller is their sexiest chip, and they'll fish with him the whole time get very few bites because they're basically fishing in the wrong hole with them. And then eventually they'll take whatever fish comes along. Just because they've got themselves so talked into the fact that they need to clear this payroll space for other initiatives that they have in mind or other things they want to try to get done. And they'll have themselves so convinced that's the only place that money's coming from that they'll force it through, even if we end up getting lottery tickets back. That might ultimately be the best trade you can make for Mitch Keller, at least as far as talent for talent goes. But it doesn't fit with the narrative of trying to make the playoffs this year. It doesn't fit with that ultimate narrative that Travis Williams put there. It only fits with that narrative if you willingly give up pitching talent like Mitch Keller or offensive talent. And it's got to be offensive talent that fits right away. It's a narrow window that you got to shoot at. And my fear again is that once the window's cracked, they just won't stop shooting until the damn thing's shattered. So my biggest fear with Mitch Keller maybe isn't the trade, and more the fact that I think they'll formulate so much of their plan based on it coming to fruition that it'll force its existence in. There'll be no backing out of it because they have to have X amount of dollars that they planned on getting back from trading Mitch Keller. The other problem with it is really just look back no further than just a couple years ago at the trade deadline when they went out and they made the trades like with Miami and Toronto to bring in IKF and that other lame brain that managed to do absolutely nothing here. Those deals couldn't take place until Ben Cherington had cleared Martin Perez and the remainder of his prorated $8 million contract was traded. They couldn't make the move, excuse me, to bring in really two middling players that didn't make a whole lot of money until they cleared the books by sending off Martin Perez. And that tells me that there's absolutely no trust that you're going to be able to go out and accomplish the other side of your equation, which is probably free agency, adding a few items and bits and pieces to this roster. I don't see you pursuing that with the belief that you might trade Mitch Keller for those extra funds. To me, the way this team is operated, I see it as being a prerequisite. You know, if indeed they're going to move Mitch Keller, to me, I think that'll be plan number one. And then the way they've operated tells me they won't spend theoretical money, so that money will have to be real first, which means the Mitch Keller deal will have to happen before they do anything else that we would consider major. Okay? So if that happens too late in the season, or off season, anything they were planning major might be snapped up. And for what Mitch makes, it's really hard for me to look at the free agent board and feel like we're in on anything major. So that's question number one. How married are the Pirates to making sure they move on from Mitch Keller? There almost can't be a bigger question. If they decide not to move on from him, it changes everything, right? Like you have what, $25-30 million to work with. And we talked about yesterday what I thought I could get done with that. You'll see them do whatever they think they can get done with that. If they move Mitch Keller, maybe it means they've got eyes on a bigger target. Maybe. But the problem to me is if you trade Mitch Keller, I think you have a severe problem on your hands. I think you absolutely have to go out and bring in a veteran. I don't think you get to not. I just think the innings problem would become so real and so apparent that I just think you'd absolutely have to bring somebody in. And if that's the case, that you have to bring somebody in, well, think about what it would take for you to feel like they had competently done it. I mean, just think about that. Think about what it would take for you to feel like, okay, they have competently replaced the innings that Mitch Keller would have given me. That's going to be like what, 10, 12 million? And in that case, I have to say, wouldn't you have just been better keeping Mitch Keller? I mean, the more I keep thinking about it, the more I keep thinking they might be better off just holding on to him. And I also think because of his retained salary, he's probably not bringing back like the caliber of player that you're thinking of. I think you do have to look for guys who are in overflow situations. You got to look for guys that aren't making a ton of money yet, are clearly disposable. And how many good players, just look around the league, how many definitively good players would ever be considered disposable? Really? Think about it. Like it's if you've ever been considered disposable in the majors, you probably are not in that upper echelon. This Mitch Keller deal, the do it or don't it, and really what it does mentally to this GM and their path forward. How big of a part of the plans is Mitch Keller? That's a gigantic question. It's a gigantic question. It would be so much easier to forecast out what the Pirates will do this offseason if I knew the answer to this one question. Are you or are you not going to look to move Mitch Keller? If you tell me no, I think I can formulate a decent plan. If you tell me yes, I think I have a little harder time formulating a decent plan. Mostly because I just don't believe they're going to get the kind of return you would need to get in order for it to be part of your plan. I mean, there's a reason that I didn't make it a feature of mine. I mentioned it as a possibility, again, because I can't answer that question. But you'll notice my plan did not feature it. You know, I left it as a possibility you could, but I leaned towards the side of don't do it. I'm kind of hoping that's what happens to the Pirates. I think they would be setting themselves back further in an area that they see as a vast strength than I believe they realize. Let's take one more quick break. When we come back, I want to do a little bit more about some typical Pirates behavior and some things I see happening this offseason. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The new Stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists. It's the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Locked On Pirates. So segment 3 is kind of going to be just a bunch of hit points about what I think we'll see this offseason. I want to start with Andrew McCutchen. I am growing increasingly sure that Andrew McCutchen is going to come back. Just people that I've talked to, it just feels to me like it's perhaps been made a little more controversial by the media, and I'm probably guilty of that as well, than it actually is. The animosity that may have started to look like it was peeking through in the locker room should probably not have been taken in such a way as to assume Andrew McCutchen was having doubts about coming back. I think he was just answering a question about really and truly not being sure about whether the team would want him back. I think we were talking about a guy who probably wasn't all that confident in his own skills or what he had been doing this year. I believe he'll be back, though, and I think he'll probably sign for a pretty similar pay scale, believe it or not. I have heard, and I pray I'm wrong, but nobody I talked to has been fired anyway. There is a legitimate interest in Tommy Pham. So they do have some interest in bringing him back. I don't believe it's to be a nailed-on starter, but I believe that they like enough of what he brought to the table, and apparently the room likes enough of what he brought to the table leadership-wise, that Tommy Pham is somebody that they are truly interested in returning, if at all possible. Power remains a need. Again, we talked about the free agent options being kind of thin there. I still think there's something they could get done in that area, but they're going to have to prioritize power over a lot of other things they value. You're going to have to probably get somebody that does nothing but power, just because you need the elements so damn much. I feel like they're going to end up pursuing some players that are in very similar situations to Ji Hwan Bae and Liover Peguero. To be basically a prioritization of new toys over old ones. They probably just wrote Andy on Ji Hwan Bae and Liover Peguero's foot before they tossed them over the fence, and somebody will find them and know who played with them when they get them. I think you're going to see continued aggressive internal development. When this team says that AA is a step away, they are not kidding. They really see it that way. I think that we've seen them practice this in the past, and I don't believe that we've seen it be a success, really, outside of Jack Sawinski. And yes, Jack Sawinski was a roaring success when first called up from AA. So, despite what he's become now, there was a time when he made that ethos look really smart. Liover Peguero, not so much, right? I think most of the 2025 team is going to return with a few new pieces glued onto it. And they're going to expect basically an overall improvement from just about everybody. Now, I've heard internally they fully expect O'Neal Cruz to rebound and completely return to looking a lot more like himself next year. There was some nagging injuries towards the end of the season with him, and a tiredness that kind of encapsulated the last 2 months of the season. Problem is, we've seen O'Neal Cruz kind of grow weary as the season's gone on. Both of his healthy seasons so far, and they were bookended around not being all that healthy or not being accustomed to the major leagues. So He's always got an excuse built in there, and excuses get made for guys with big talent. That's just the truth. But I know they expect him to rebound. I know they expect Brian Reynolds to. I know they expect Henry Davis to take a step. So I think internally they feel like they're going to get a lot of those growth points. They think Gonzalez is going to be better. They think Spencer Horwitz is going to improve. They really think Jared Triolo is on to something. So and they, again, they believe they're going to get reinforcements from some of these AA players in pretty short order. So in many ways, I don't think the Pirates see the problem as nearly as drastic as we do. And really, in a way, hasn't that kind of always been the problem? I mean, there's a reason that I named this one Typical Pirates, because that's how I felt really when I kind of got through doing this exercise. Was I feel like they're going to be very typical Pirates. They're going to do exactly what we expect them to do, just not a whole hell of a lot. And we're going to have real questions that I think people need to be asked. They need to be pinned to their words. They have put out the playoffs are bust this year, and I need to understand how every transaction they make is moving the ball towards that. This was probably a more pessimistic show than mine yesterday, where I was talking about how I would go about it. But I would say, what did you expect? Did you expect this to be awesome? This is what I expect the Pirates to do. I expect them to go relatively cheap. The biggest question on the table to me, again, is the Mitch Keller question. I almost need that to be answered before I can even move forward. It tells so much. It tells how much money you have to spend. It tells you, is there another gigantic area we have to spend it? And I think ultimately it would come down to how successful whatever his return was towards affecting this year's baseball team. If they took that $14 million and they went and signed Eugenio Suarez with part of that, then okay, you go, I get what you did. You had to make the room on the payroll to do what you did. I hate that we have to be like that, but I get it. But do you see that happening? I don't. And again, I think by the time they would actually pull the trigger on a Mitch Keller deal, most of what they would have returned in any kind of a fish pond will be gone. And the money that they would bring in for it, well, I doubt Eugenio Suarez is still hanging around. So there's a lot of concerns I have with this offseason, at least as far as if they go with what they typically do. I think this is very reflective of what they typically do. Pirates are doing what they always do. They try to look like they're changing things, but they're really kind of staying the same. If they trade Keller, it'll be about money, in my mind anyway, more than improvement. And if they sign anyone, it'll be short term and low impact. That's the typical Pirates way. I don't see any signings going beyond 2026 for two very obvious reasons. One, the Pirates don't do it. Haven't done it. And until they do it, I'm not going to sit here and tell you they will. And second, 2027 is looming. If they ever had an excuse to not do it, it's this year. So pardon me if I don't expect it all of a sudden. Listen, we're going to keep talking about the Pirates, and we're going to keep treating them seriously because somebody has to.